The Miami Dolphins, who saw their quarterback Tua Tagovailoa have one of the scariest moments in recent football history as he went down with his third concussion in just 2 years during their Thursday night football game against the Buffalo Bills. They have officially decided to place Tua on the injured reserve list, meaning that he will be out for at least 4 weeks. I would have to imagine that it's going to be a little bit longer than that. Now, we'll see. Like I mentioned, third concussion in 2 years. It is very serious at this point. But Tua seems determined to return to play for the Dolphins, that he is not ready to give up on his NFL dreams. Thought that there was a chance, considering the fact that he also just got paid this offseason. The number it specifically was reported on earlier this morning about the idea that I believe it is somewhere around $49 million that would be fully guaranteed for Tua if he were to outright retire, or more specifically, be forced into retirement. So doesn't sound like that is going to be the case, and he is going to try and work his way back into the NFL moving forward here. But this is a situation that obviously I have my thoughts, you have your thoughts, but this is his decision. He's deciding to stick with football, so we do ultimately just need to look at it from that perspective. So by being placed on the injured reserve list, he is going to be required to miss at least 4 weeks, and then we'll see from there. CBS Sports put out an article with their injury expert that now at this point the protocol would be about 8 weeks. We'll see about that. I think that Tua is going to play as soon as he physically can. Now, whatever goes on behind the scenes in terms of him being cleared, we will have to see. But if Tua is unable to go, I do believe that this Dolphins season is in serious jeopardy. This is a team that I had on the outside looking in for the playoffs as it was, and now they haven't exactly looked great through 2 weeks. Obviously, Tua suffers the concussion in the third quarter of that Thursday night football game, but they were already down big at that point. So you can chalk that up as a loss, even if you want to give them a little bit of an excuse for Tua's injury, that it wasn't more competitive. They were being beaten pretty handedly at the time of the injury, and now moving forward here, they are going to have Skylar Thompson at the helm for them. Now, I have been a big believer that there are a lot of quarterbacks that can, be an efficient quarterback in that Mike McDaniel offense, especially with all of the weapons surrounding that quarterback position. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. You have a couple of speedy running backs. Raheem Mostert still dealing with his injury. He's been unavailable for them through 2 weeks, but him along with Devin Achane, who was a breakout star last season, now hoping to get a full season of experience, considering that he went down with a season-ending injury in his 2023 rookie campaign. That there are a lot of pieces surrounding that quarterback position anyways that, in theory, the Dolphins will be able to get by for at least a short period of time with Tua on the bench. Now, like I mentioned, being placed on the IR, that will keep him out for at least 4 weeks, which I believe would set him up for a return in week 7. The Dolphins schedule in the next few weeks, they are in Seattle this upcoming Sunday. Then they have a little bit of a longer week playing versus Tennessee at home, and then they are at New England in week 5 before the bye week. So that's really the timetable we're looking at as the earliest Tua could return, and it is largely a manageable schedule. Now, especially against Mike Macdonald and what is a tough Seattle defense in a very tough environment to play in Seattle, I have some real doubts about their chances in that game. But from that point on, the Titans, another Monday night game against the Titans, by the way, last year, that was sort of the emergence of Will Levis pulling off the comeback there. So just to add a little bit of fuel to the fire there, feels like Mike McDaniel probably will try and remind his team of that game. And ultimately, I don't think that the Titans are all that dynamic of an offense anyways, that if their defense is able to step it up, this does feel like a game that could sort of be maybe a little bit of a slugfest, but a winnable one for Miami. The Patriots coming into this season known as one of the lesser teams in the NFL. Now, they've shown through their first couple games that they may be a little bit tougher of an out than initially thought. We'll see sort of how that fully comes into play. Offense is a little bit limited in the passing game. Offensive line there still a mess. So another game where the Dolphins, this is really going to be a test, and sort of an important test as well, just in general, if they ever were to be Super Bowl contenders, of can they win in low-scoring games? They showed that maybe a little bit in Week 1 against the Jaguars, and what was ultimately a pretty sloppy game, in my opinion, on both sides there. But it's the next 3 weeks before the bye week are very doable for them. Now, Skylar Thompson is not somebody that I have real faith in to totally get the job done. That's why the defense is going to be so important for them. The Dolphins did also, interestingly enough, sign Tyler Snoop Huntley off of the Baltimore Ravens practice squad. Huntley, a lot of you may remember that he actually did end up making a Pro Bowl a couple years ago, even though he played in just 4 games. Kind of the ultimate stance of how the Pro Bowl is kind of so meaningless. No offense to Huntley, but just sort of the reality of the situation there. He's an interesting player. He gives you at least something with his legs, that there is an element that you can work on. And in such a fast-paced offense, you do wonder if maybe he's somebody that could at least show a little bit of life there. But ultimately, I don't see any real chance that the Dolphins are going to be able to sort of dig themselves out of, it's not even a hole that they're in right now. They're still 1-1, so they're very much statistically alive in the mix. It's kind of hard to be out of it unless you're maybe the Carolina Panthers just 2 weeks into the season. But ultimately speaking here, I think that the Dolphins can't really be taken seriously unless Tua is playing for them, which is, again, something that you can sort of agree or disagree with the idea of him playing. But if we are going to operate under the assumption that Tua is wanting to return to the NFL and that he is eventually going to get cleared, he really is the X factor, and that's sort of a no-duh statement. How often, is the quarterback not really an X factor for them? But Tua, it's interesting with him, and it's tough because, again, you don't want to bash Tua too much for his play on Thursday night last week because of, obviously, the concussion that was suffered. I had seen myself in the 24 hours leading up to that game talking myself into the play of Tua a little bit more, and this idea that, yes, is he a perfect quarterback by any means of the imagination? No, but I also do feel like he operates the system that Miami wants pretty well, all things considered. Just this idea of making those quick decisions, delivering the ball on time, and there's sort of maybe some of the simpler skills, but he has done so very well the past couple of years under McDaniel, and I know that it was not a great Tua performance. Obviously had a couple of interceptions. I thought that I liked the aggression that we still saw from him there. It seemed like he was trying to add this extra element to his game of providing a little bit more of anticipation throws downfield. Now, we talked about this last week when we covered the game. He just tried to throw anticipation routes to Robbie Chosen and Grant Dubose. So those aren't necessarily the exact weapons I would prefer to see that, where he has probably pretty little rhythm and connection with either one of them. But The other part of his game that it seemed like from the first 2 weeks you were maybe seeing a little bit more was just this idea of Tua upping his game a little bit in the pocket in terms of a mobility standpoint. Now, I would probably imagine that takes another step back, considering Tua is just going to try and avoid contact as much as possible. But even still, at the base level of Tua, even though I'm not the biggest fan of him necessarily, he still led the NFL in passing yards last year and had a career season. So you can have doubts about him, and I think that is absolutely fair. I am with you on that to some degree, but the Dolphins are still, without a doubt, a better offense with him in there, and they are a highly functioning offense as well when he is available for them. So, sort of to put a bow on things here, it sounds like the idea is at least 4 weeks. That would take them through their bye week, which would make things a little bit easier for them in terms of not even having to play a game there. I think it's probably going to take more than 4 weeks in particular, just with the sort of spotlight on the Dolphins right now in terms of this injury and understanding that this is one of the most serious situations, at least in recent history, of repeated head trauma that we have seen with Tua's situation. Not to mention, 2 of those concussions were suffered on primetime football. Everybody, that's kind of the main storyline with the Dolphins at this point, that I think they're going to be ultra cautious. We'll see how long they can sort of get through this stretch without Tua. Again, CBS Sports, when they did their article on it, said protocol would be at least 8 weeks. So that would take you closer to, I guess it would be, week 9-ish, week 10-ish. And that's a long time to sort of have Tua sitting out and trying to work his way back into the groove of the offense. Again, maybe it's a little bit simplistic, so that would work in his favor. But either way, I think it's a pretty tall task that the Dolphins have right now in order to return to the playoffs. I'm pretty skeptical about it, but only time will tell. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments section. But that being said, we are going to be moving on now, and we're going to be doing a tier list that we do every week. We have some adjustments from post-week 1 to post-week 2. So I'm going to be breaking down all 32 teams and where they stand in the NFL headed into week 3. So we are going to be diving into that. But first, a quick break. Do not go anywhere. We will be right back.